think it's working.
Yes. Just in a moment, it's up in the top left-hand corner. It says starting recording, and if they do that, they've got to do a whole hair record. Now it's about a one. So, um, let's just talk about it in general, but we know that we're talking about it very specifically. But in all cases, adults who are around children, whether it's a nephew or a student or a child, um, we want the best for that child.
Yeah,
And that when we want the best for the child, many times the child doesn't understand. Eh,
correct. He's rebellious.
Like an example of that is taking the dog to the vet. All the dog knows is that poking and needles and stuff like that is painful. So the dogs don't want to go into the vet, but we drag them in anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's very difficult to teach the dog about health and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
With children, we try to talk them into it, but they still don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that whole idea about going to the doctor is something that we do in general that we could call education, all kinds of education. And in what's the most important in our case is the sense of morality or what's the right way to live. But we could also see it in the sense of making sure that the child is getting the kind of education that we think he needs so that he can have the kind of job that we want him to have.
Yeah, because we're worried he can't survive.
Because we're worried he can't survive. And guess what? We are worried because we were taught how to worry because we watched our own parents and adults worry over us. So we could almost call this the original sin is the worry wart or whatever that's passed down from generation to generation. And that takes various different forms, including domestic violence, that we know for sure that a child raised in a home that is having domestic violence, he's much more likely then to have domestic violence in the home that he lives when he's an adult. That's just the way things are that
Mm.
is trained and learned behavior. Not only that, but the surprise is that when a mom spanks her child, her daughter, she will spank the child the way that her mom spanked her
Yeah, we just carry it on.
until we wake up to this whole process. And the best way to wake up to it is to wake up to it in the sense of in our own mind. Now, here's a really clear example of that. If you see somebody that has just fallen over the side of a ship and you cannot swim, but you panic and you want to save their life so bad that you jump in the ocean with them, what good is that going to do?
Yeah, yeah, no, we're all gonna drown. Drown.
Right, okay. This is what we call pity party or misery loves company.
Yeah.
Or in a way, we try to operate with people not according to what they need, but according to what we think they need based upon what we need ourselves. This is called sometimes egocentric or selfishness. And the whole teaching of the Buddha is to teach to come out of selfishness and be loving and kind to other people, but we don't because we are critical with other people the way that we are critical with ourselves. So the very quick and easy answer I can give you now is that if you want to help a child, the best way that you can do that is by helping yourself to come out of your own parent-child relationship that you have within your own mind, get your own act together, and then you will act like an adult to the child, teaching the child how to be an adult, as opposed to being a parent to the child, teaching the child how to react to parents and then how to become a parent to have a child react to them.
Correct. I can see what you're saying. All I am trying to do with my nephew is to share. I don't tell him what to do. I'm telling him, for example, that his behavior might keep him, might cause him being alone, and he might not have friends if he treats people this way. Uh, I don't tell him not to do it or do it a certain way. I'm just sharing that this might cause him something. So,
I understand what you mean. Let me address that as a counterexample.
yeah.
The name of the individual that I'm thinking of is Milton H. Erickson. Now, he became famous. First off, he had polio and was stricken with polio and was wheelchair bound back in the 1940s and 50s during a time which meant that he was isolated, truly. He
Uh-huh.
was more isolated than any child with a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But because of his isolations and whatnot, he picked up the habit of observing and watching people, very much like your nephew was watching and observing on the cell phone.
Correct.
And that in that process, he became a very, very famous master hypnotist. And that he caught the eye of several research psychologists named Bandler and Grinder, who studied the style of Milton H. Erickson, who picked this stuff up naturally by observing. And they've
Mm-hmm.
developed a whole branch of psychology called neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. So that's the kind of thing that isolation will give to a child if he uses it well.
Wow. But how can I ensure that he uses it well?
You don't have that ability
Yeah.
to do that unless you have that ability within your own mind so that you can give him the example.
Mm-hmm.
So if you begin to live and act nobly and understand what it is to be very high class noble in your mind, in other words, you begin to figure out what really is the very best way for a human being to behave and act, and then you start behaving and acting that way as a role model for him, he will pick that up naturally. This is called synchronicity. It's called guilt by association, but this is the very, very highest quality guilt. This is what Sangha is all about. In other words, the best way for you to help your nephew is for you to help your own mind. You come out of all your misery and suffering and be glad and happy and cheerful all the time and not worried about a darn thing, and very successful at everything that you do because you're paying attention to what you're doing. He'll pick that up. He just doesn't have any models of people who are living their lives like that.
Yeah, everything around him is like you basically like suffering through life. Like there is no.
I see your face when you say that, and as you're suffering through life also. Perhaps he's picked that suffering through life up through some of the adults around him, his own family.
Yeah. I
So
feel like
maybe you can begin to live your life dancing through life happily, and he'll start dancing with you.
well, he's literally dancing. Literally, he says he's doing a, he's doing a ballroom dancing, and I think he lives there more than outside of the classroom. But
Okay.
I understand. Look, so right, so for me to live happily and dance through life, uh, I don't. I feel like I'm trying to explain if something bothers me that it's something within me and not outside of me. and I guess I'm struggling to
Why are
accept.
you bothering yourself so much? Is that a
Well,
habit?
oh yeah, absolutely. It's
Oh,
like,
well, you can come out of that habit by stop bothering yourself so much. All you have to do is remember to look at what you're doing. And when you see yourself bothering yourself, you can say, hey, hot dog, I don't have to do that.
so for me, for example, to smile when I'm angry or like bothered is to like,
Why would
as
I ever say to smile when you feel angry? Why would
but
you feel angry? Why don't you feel like smiling and then smile? That's real. Why
well
should
the
you choose to be angry when you can choose to feel smiley?
but the switch between these emotions
Why would
is,
you bother to switch? Once you find out that joyful and smiley is better than anger, you can avoid being angry.
well, that's the thing. I feel like I need to learn how to be angry first and then I'll be smiling. I don't know.
Well, that means that you need to see anger for what it is and then say, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to smiley, smiley when I see the anger.
But it makes me even more angry. Like,
No, it doesn't.
oh,
You
please.
choose to be more angry.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely do. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm doing, yes.
Yes, so that's a vicious cycle, and you can unwind it to be a happy cycle. That if being angry and seeing anger makes you more angry, then smiling and seeing smiley should make you more smiley, right?
Correct. But what do I do? Do I switch on? Do I like put on some happy videos and start pretending?
Yes, between your ears, videos between your ears, as opposed to the horror movies you keep playing. Oh my God, he's watching the videos on that cell phone. He's only watching girls. He'll never learn anything. I hear that video. That's a horror movie you play. You don't have to play that horror movie. You can play a horror movie. Everything is okay, except that it's not a horror movie. You can have actually happy thoughts. You don't have to have dangerous, unhappy thoughts. But it takes practice, and this is what the practice of the Buddha is all about. He makes sure that he makes this very clear, and yet it's missed by Western Buddhism, even though the Buddha harped on it on sutta after sutta after sutta. And that is that there are two kinds of thoughts, wholesome thoughts and unwholesome thoughts. And if we have unwholesome thoughts, then we're going to have the feelings that are associated with unwholesome thoughts. And if we have wholesome thoughts, then we'll have feelings associated with wholesome thoughts. This is the teaching of the Buddha. And he's got it nailed down to the very deepest details on how to do this and whatnot. But basically, it's all about that when you play horror movies, you're going to have horrible results. And when you play happy movies, then you're going to have happy results.
Yeah.
This is the teaching of the Buddha.
But
And
that's,
one's right effort is to change those thoughts. And it's going to take some effort.
yeah, because I feel like it's just cheating instead of living through them.
Pardon?
I feel like it's cheating instead of living with those thoughts.
Okay, well, who set up those rules?
It's in my, it's, I don't know, because life is suffering.
No, life is not suffering. Where did you ever hear that? Some people even think that that's the First Noble Truth, and it's wrong on several counts.
Well, exactly. Maybe it's the translation, but dukkha is suffering or like display.
Yeah, Duke, okay, that's a mistranslation. Dukkha, when seen like that, looks like a great big thing, but a much better translation of dukkha is dissatisfied or unsatisfactory. So that brings up there's a bumper sticker, and the bumper sticker says life is shit and then you die.
Yeah.
But that's not the teaching of the Buddha. Buddha does not say life itself is dukkha. The real statement is that dissatisfaction actually exists. And then the second noble truth is, and there is a cause for this dissatisfaction. And
Desire.
and when well, that's not exactly correct. That's in fact very simplified. It's not necessarily the desire itself, it's that the desire is ignorant and often foolish, as opposed to wise desire. So we could
Mhm.
go so far as to say that the desire that is done by instinct is in fact quite often, because the programming is so simple, is often wrong. But if we use the higher qualities of the brain and start
Mhm.
looking at things the way things really are, then we can come out of our foolish desires and start desiring things that are actually easily attainable. Because otherwise, we want things that we don't have. Wanting something that we don't have, regardless of what it is a form of suffering. So when your nephew does not do what you want him to do, that's you suffering
Correct.
because you
Yeah.
want something that you don't have.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole teaching of the Buddha is to wake up to all of these thoughts that are unwholesome, that leads us into a state of being dissatisfied with life, and we start becoming satisfied with life. Because life itself is not suffering, it's actually quite nice.
I don't know. This is
I know you don't know.
old statement.
And you don't even have to take my word for it, but at least you can see that I can see that that life is can be joyful.
Yeah.
That's in fact, if you want to think about it that way, and I'll give you part of the secret is that it's my job to show you enough joy that you believe that you can have a little of it too, and once you get a bit of it, you can let it grow, so that you too can become joyful and satisfied with your life. That's what the teaching of the Buddha is all about. This is what Sangha is all about. That if you cannot find someone who is joyful and happy to be around for a little while, then you'll be miserable like everybody else is miserable. But if you can find someone that's joyful and happy, you can be joyful and happy too. And then you can go be joyful and happy with your nephew, and he'll be good to go. And you don't have to worry about him. He's already too worried.
Yeah. So when I recognize the thought that I'm judging, what do I do with it?
You can say, aha, I caught you, judgmental thought.
So it's just constant conversation with yourself, like a
Well, you're
right.
already having a constant conversation with yourself. Now you can learn to have a happy conversation with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
basically, the conversation that's normally going on in most people's mind is the conversation between the parent ego state and the child ego state, using Eric Burns' language, or between the superego and the id in Freudian language. Okay. But the Buddha
Mm-hmm.
knows all about this also. He knew about it long. I mean, Buddha was a better Freud than Freud. So, this conversation is basically a judgmental conversation, in the sense of your parents told you what was right and what was wrong, what to do and what is not to do. Put that down, that cell phone, and do your homework. Learn your ABCs, do your one, two, threes. And so we get into this judgmental mind state. And that mind state of liking and not liking, or success and not success, has then the quality that winds up being the second noble truth, because it's based in ignorance, and we wind up wanting things that we can't have. But if we were wise, we would stop wanting things that we can't have and start enjoying the things that we do have. And that's the basic teachings of the Buddha, is to come out of wanting things, to recognize that wanting something is actually uh, prone to suffering or dangerous.
My problem with wanting things is not about material want, like finances or comfort. um my point is wanting like normal family with with good relationship within the family, with like dinners and conversations, and that's not what I'm seeing. And I haven't been in my family in 13 years. So I come back and and I see the disturbance, and I can't re-enter anymore. Like it bothers me so much, or I bother myself by watching and judging,
Hmm.
and I want
Not
them
by
to
watching. You don't bother yourself by watching. You judge
but
what you're
and
finding.
judge. Correct, yeah. But I feel so I feel that they're suffering. They just hate each other. Why
Yeah,
are they
and
even
well, why do
together?
you have to hate yourself and hate them because they hate each other?
I just want them
Who's
to.
going to make a change here? If you
Oh,
hate them enough, they'll start loving you. Is that how it works?
no, I just want them to be in peace.
Why do you want them to be at peace? Why don't you just be at peace and maybe it'll rub off on them? But if you want them to be at peace and you're all agitated about them being at peace, you're bringing agitation to them, not peacefulness.
Yeah, because how do I not react to comments that are degrading?
You choose for them to be degrading. They may just be advisory as far as the source goes. You're making that judgment that these thoughts are degrading or these comments are degrading. You could also have the attitude, hey, you're right, I'm going to change that.
Well, no, they're not degrading towards me. It's between my parents. They're degrading towards each other.
Well, maybe they're having a contest and only they know how much they're enjoying it. There's a joke about that, by the way. It's when Noah opened the ark and he was counting with his, primitive papers there, and he's checking off 2 elephants and 2 camels and he comes out and there's 27 cats. And that old cat looked up at him and says, and you thought we were fighting all along.
Yeah, seriously.
And so you're Noah there. You're just thinking that they're fighting. You don't know what they're doing.
Oh,
That's
I
their relationship, and you don't like their relationship.
no, because they're getting like sick of it. They're getting physical sickness, and it's hard to
Okay.
see it.
And what I see is that you're getting physically sick right along with them, that you're vibrating to their drumbeat.
I know when I'm not here with them, I'm I'm different.
No,
But
you're
when I
you, you're, but here's the point is that you're still getting sucked into it.
yes, and that's my problem, that just I just slip into it, and it's hard to get out of that rut.
Actually, no, it's not. It's actually quite easy.
Start laughing.
Well, the point that makes it hard is number one is that you've already got the wrong attitude in the sense of being a victim, that you already feel victimized by their um, internal conflict. There they are shooting at each other, and you're standing over here on the side catching all the bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And so you feel like that they're shooting at you, or in fact, you're just standing in the way.
Yeah.
And so the way to begin to handle this is to recognize that this is not you. What they're doing is not your business. And that you don't know what they're doing anyway. That your job is to be calm and happy and peaceful and relaxed. And perhaps that will start to rub off on them. But if you're as agitated as they are, how can you expect them to learn anything from you?
All right, what do I do to become calm and peaceful and not agitated?
All right.
Do I just sit and focus on my breath when they're bickering?
Why are you focusing on their bickering at all?
Because it's loud. It's
Yes. So
it's
why are you focusing on their bickering? Why can't you also and in fact focus on something else? This is one of the main ways of doing things. And in fact, if you see something ugly, what do? You divert your eyes. You look at something else. Okay. So you don't have to be in hearing. When they're yelling, you can go into some other sense. And one of the things to do is to take a few deep breaths and say, wow, it's so nice. I don't have to listen to them. It is so nice. I really don't have to let that in at all. I can go into seclusion inside my mind. Actually, it's even better for you in the beginning is to actually physically get secluded to them. Is when they start bickering, walk out of the room. Or better still, dance out of the room.
yeah, no, I do remove myself physically.
Yes, so get away from it all and get yourself into seclusion. And then when you're in seclusion, you can say, well, I'm so glad that I don't have to listen to any of that stuff.
Oh, I again, this is like it's like a remorse of I'm cheating, not helping. Oh,
Yes,
so crazy.
but let's go back to say, who set your rules that
Yeah,
you're cheating? Who set that rule that life is supposed to be hard?
yeah,
And in
exactly.
fact, that's nothing but an attitude. And what I hear you going to, and in fact, we can go ahead and start this right quickly. I'm not a psychologist.
I think you are the best psychologist I've ever met.
Well,
Just
the
crazy.
reason for that is because the psychologist knows more about their client than they're willing to tell them. I'm quite upfront,
Yeah.
okay? And so in that regard, I'm not a psychologist because I want the students to get over their psychological stuff rather than get their payments in time. So there are the three P's, and the three P's have to do with um, permission, protection, and potency. Now, potency has to do with attitude, the winner's attitude. This is part of the Eightfold Noble Path. Um, protection means that you've got some internal strength and you can manage and handle things, that this is part of the potency. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, what we're actually looking at is the issue of permission. Do you actually have permission to feel good? The answer is no. And the reason that we don't give ourselves permission to do what we need to do is because we think that the job is not done yet, that we haven't done